Hi everyone, this is Tom with the LEC preview of this week. The LEC is heading into its 4th weekend of Summer Split action, which is the final weekend before the LEC takes a 2-weekend break, and after that we go into the second half of the double round robin, and each team will play each other once again. So let's take a look at the matches and do some predictions for this weekend. The first one is Vitality versus Excel. Vitality has seen a downward trend ever since their pretty interesting and surprisingly strong opening weekend, and Excel has seen a slight upward trend. They've picked up 2 wins now and are still at 5 losses, whereas Vitality has 3 wins and 4 losses. So in standings, these teams are pretty close to each other. I still think that Vitality will have the edge over Excel because I think in individual play as well as team synergy, they are just a tiny bit ahead. However, it has to be noted that Excel has definitely stepped up their game, and last week against Schalke 04, while Schalke is definitely the worst team in the LEC, the sheer dominance with which Excel defeated Schalke was something that other teams failed to do. So Excel, if they manage to win against Vitality, it's safe to say that they're actually now a playoff contender, and if Vitality wins this against Excel, then I guess, you know, they still get a name for themselves, right? They did drop and they lost against Rogue. They lost against the Mad Lions in week 2. Then they lost against, who is it? Against Misfits. So, you know, somebody has to be last and somebody has to not make it to playoffs. And I think Vitality is definitely in that danger zone. But I think they'll win against Excel and get an upward trend going again. The second match is Mad Lions versus Schalke 04. I'm not going to pay a whole lot of attention to this. It's the safest bet you can make in the LEC at the moment, to bet on Schalke losing. So, and I expect Mad Lions to do so. They're the first in the league and they're playing dominantly. So that's going to be a win for Mad Lions. There's Fnatic against SK Gaming. Now, SK Gaming is at a 4-3 score and Fnatic, disappointingly, at a 3-4 score. Fnatic is just not finding their team synergy. Whippo and Nemesis, most notably, are failing in their positions and not living up to what they showed in the Spring Split and actually showed in the opening weekend, where they played pretty well. And SK Gaming, it's the exact opposite. The team's clicking, the team's finding their strategy, finding new ways to victory. It's a difficult call to make, which is surprising. You know, you'd have to say in any reasonable season that Fnatic would win this, but screw it. We're gonna say SK Gaming wins against Fnatic. I don't know what's gonna happen to Fnatic if that happens, but yeah, let's say SK win this. The match of the day probably will be Rogue versus Origin, which is the 4th match, and Rogue, obviously very strong so far. They are second in the league with a 5-2 score. Origin 4-3 had a rough time in the beginning, trying to find their ways, and actually last week had a 1-on-1 weekend as well. They lost against the Mad Lions, but they won against Schalke 04, which again isn't much of an achievement these days. But still, Origin has the potential to win this with individual power. I think Alvari is still a better top laner than Finn is, for example. I think in the mid lane, actually, Larsen so far has been playing phenomenally, so I would give him the edge in the mid lane over Nuke Duck. But then in the bot lane, you look at Hanzama and Vender versus Destiny and Upset. And that's a pretty even matchup as well. Then finally you have the jungle. You have Xerxes versus Inspired, obviously. And yeah, I think I'd give Inspired the edge here. He's been playing well, and he is among the top players if you look at the pure stats. Obviously, those have to be interpreted. And I think Rogue will edge it out over Origin. The final match is Misfits versus G2, and G2 will be playing with Pinoy this weekend, as Perks has announced that he will be taking a break soon to take care of his mental health, which is obviously very important, and absolutely respect him for stepping up and doing that. I think every player and every team should have their prime focus be their players' mental well-being. And so yeah, Pinoy will be swapping in, which is obviously another adjustment G2 has to make. They already were not playing very well. They lost against SK Gaming just last weekend and then stomped Fnatic, so the potential is there. You know, the raw power is still undeniably there, and I think they will still win against Misfits. I think when you just look at how Misfits has been performing so far, even though they had a 2-0 weekend last week, you cannot deny that G2 overall is just a team that when they grind and when they put in the hours can win against anybody, and I think they will do so against Misfits as well. Then we get to the second day, which will be kicking off with Rogue versus SK Gaming. And, you know, the Rogue was praised a lot because, you know, maybe they started with a relatively easy schedule compared to other teams. But I still think that they are just definitely a world's contender, top 4 contender, whereas SK Gaming, I see them at the moment more as a playoffs contender. So if I have to give the edge, I would give it to Rogue. I think in the mid lane, Larsen is better than Zazie. Most notably in the bot lane, I do think Crownshot has a slight edge over Hansam at the moment if I see them playing right now. In the top lane, I'd say it's pretty even. But still, if you look at Rogue, their macro play is just insane. And I think SK is going to have a tough time putting up with that. So I would give the edge to Rogue. Then there's Vitality versus Origin. And honestly, with this match, I honestly don't know. Now, people may say it's going to be an easy win for Origin against Vitality. But keep in mind that this split so far has been a mess and has been incredibly chaotic. So definitely give Vitality a chance here, especially because Origin has had moments where they looked incredibly unorganized. So yeah, well, let's give the edge to Origin. Let's give the edge to Origin in the end, just because of the individual power, right? But maybe, you know, if tomorrow they don't show up at all against Rogue and look bad, then maybe they don't have a good weekend and Vitality can win it. But if I have to make a guess, I'd say Origin. Third match will be Mad Lions versus Misfits. I could talk for hours about Mad Lions, but because I just love watching them play, right? I love these rookies stepping up, like this flamboyant squad dominating and triumphing. But it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to go in depth with this. I think just in terms of skill, in terms of team play, Mad Lions will win against Misfits pretty easily. The fourth match is Fnatic versus Schalke 04. I could make some memes about Fnatic failing to play well, but Schalke 04 obviously has played even worse. So I think Fnatic should at least get this win this weekend and yeah, find at least a 4 at the right side of the scoreboard, which is the left side. It's going at least for ending the weekend on a 4 or 5, but maybe they'll, as I said, against SK Gaming. I gave the edge to SK Gaming, but they should at least go 1-1 this weekend. And it's if they lose against Schalke, then they're gonna need to have a talk with their team during the break. The final match is G2 versus XL. Same thing, I think, as with Fnatic against Schalke. G2 has had moments where they look shaky, but in terms of raw power, they should easily win against XL Esports, even though I have to say, last weekend when they played against Misfits, I think it was that the only player that did stand out for me against them was the new mid laner Special, and yeah, maybe if XL steps up in every role and finds a coherent way of playing, then maybe they can do something against G2. But I doubt it. I think G2 is poised and to take this. I think they have all their minds set on nothing but winning. These are probably the most competitive people I've ever met when I speak to them, and yeah, I think they'll win against XL. So those are my predictions, and those are the matches for this weekend. Let me know what your predictions are in the comments below. If you like the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more content.